Olga Steffen. I'm the director of the Chicago Artists Coalition. We're a non-for-profit arts organization here in Chicago. We serve individual artists through a variety of different services, such as professional development, the publication of this newspaper, which I hope everybody has gotten a chance to take. The newspaper itself is basically a resource for artists. We have a lot of listings towards the end, and after the session, I hope that you guys can take a look. And if you're interested in showing locally, this is really one of the best resources to actually access in order to find exhibition opportunities. First of all, let me start out by asking, is everybody here interested in the visual arts? Okay, so basically we are targeting visual artists. I wanted to clarify the mission of our organization. So for exhibition opportunities, residencies, grants, those types of opportunities, we have a very comprehensive listing at the end of our newspaper. We also have a very comprehensive website, caconline.org, that contains information about upcoming deadlines. We have a very large online gallery section with galleries from various members and artists in the Chicago art community. We have about 400 artists that show their work on our online galleries, and that's a really great place to actually exhibit your work. We get about 4 million hits per month, and the primary target, the primary core of those hits are from people interested in accessing visual arts in Chicago. So we are a resource for artists. The organization is a resource for artists, and we're here to provide the type of information and kind of infrastructure that artists need in order to advance in their careers. So that is my organization. First of all, why don't we talk about what a professional artist is? Can I ask that and get some feedback as to what you guys think a professional artist is?
Someone who makes money doing art.
Maybe. But not only, and I'm sorry that my mic is five people there. Interestingly enough, you know, we consider in kind of common language, we feel that professional artists are those individuals that actually sell their work and survive off of the sales of their work. However, interestingly enough, a professional artist is not only that. A professional artist, and if we actually look a little bit to the next page, we will actually see that a professional artist is somebody who is dedicated to their practice. And being dedicated to your practice does not only mean that you earn, that you survive off of the revenue that you get from the sale. And that's why many individuals who come out of school, college, in the arts, don't necessarily start a very successful practice, but because they are committed to the advancement of their practice, can consider themselves professional artists. So if we are engaged in the creative process seriously, we are committed to showing regularly. We are committed to exhibiting regularly in professional venues such as art centers, juried exhibitions maybe, those types of venues that are considered professional. Our practice will then be considered a professional practice, even if we don't manage to sell the work right off the bat, or we don't manage to make a living off of the work in the beginning. And many artists, of course, need to also subsidize their living with income from other sources, right? Many artists are professors, teachers, designers, right? Whatever they need to do in order to complement their earnings from the sales of art and you know, live a full life. So we see here a definition, and this is actually the official definition of a professional artist, the UNESCO definition, and some aspects of being a professional artist that you might want to consider, and how that can be implemented in your practice. So have work available for sale, exhibit, commission, etc. Participate in residencies. Residencies are you familiar with what residencies are? Most of you? Well, a residence is a time that you dedicate, usually, away from where you usually function. You go to a place of retreat, let's say, to focus on a project, for a set amount of time. So, for example, there are residences in the Chicago area that offer artists a time away from the job, the everyday kind of, bustle, for maybe 4 weeks, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, during which time an artist can focus on a project, maybe career goals, advancement, and really just take time out and complete that particular project. And usually those organizations offering residencies will be giving you a stipend, or there's arrangements where they give you accommodations in exchange for the time that you offer to create a body of work or a project or something to that effect. And those are really wonderful opportunities to get, because it really takes you away from the everyday, and then you have time as an artist to focus on what it is that you want, what it is that you want to create, and how you get the opportunity to do that in a limited amount of time.
Do you have your idea already in mind?
You usually have to, when proposing for a residence, you usually have to have some idea as to what it is that you want to achieve during that time. And most organizations offering residences will let you know what guidelines you need to follow in order to apply. So, for example, Ragdale Foundation is a local organization that offers residences to local artists, and they will let you know that you need to submit this type of information, maybe a proposed project, but not necessarily a specific thing. Rather the concept of what it is that you'd like to achieve during that time, and based on previous work that you submit along with your proposal, they will be able to better determine whether it is something that fits their interests as well. And Ragdale specifically, I know, does indeed offer accommodations to residents, and it's a beautiful space, a beautiful time away from the maddening crowd, so to speak. So, many of Chicago's very talented artists have had residences at Ragdale specifically, and it's a really great opportunity to consider your practice in a more focused fashion. So, do you guys have any questions about what a professional artist is in terms of the actual definition, or awards or grants? Before we move on to
I really like how you've taken the definition and you have clarified that as long as you're working towards this goal, it doesn't necessarily have to be, I don't teach, so I'm a real artist. All of that kind of comparison, if you're an artist, you know it.
Yes.
So I really appreciate that definition very much.
Yeah, and it's a realistic definition, because really what artists are dedicated to is their craft, is their practice. Certainly in an ideal world, we would all love to make a wonderful living off of our craft and our practice, but it's not necessarily the object that artists are really dedicated to, but I think that it is a need of an artist to create, and the creative process is probably most important, and being dedicated to that abstract notion of the creative process as a professional is not something that you could quantify, and as a result, it is not something that you can really depend for a salary. You cannot, measure that dedication. So that's why, as artists, we have a very special role in society. We are not salaried individuals by a company to create a certain, unless of course we do design, which is obviously a little bit different, or architects, or other creatives. But we've got our own schedules. We've got our own creative abilities, and they kind of come in bursts of energy, right? And as a result, it's not something that you could absolutely quantify the way that most companies do on a 9 to 5.
Just personally for me, I didn't consider myself an artist until I got into the first jury show. So
How
this
interesting.
changes
And what do you do? Are you a painter?
Painter.
Yeah. So basically, the more the concept of being dedicated to one's craft is the real essence of professionalism in this arena. Okay. And again, being dedicated meaning that you are pursuing a stable exhibiting career. Okay, so let's move on to the creation of a portfolio. Why do we need a portfolio, and how do we create a portfolio that best represents our practice, our body of work, and our abilities? First, of course, we have to start with how we present the work in and of itself. And that really takes us to the essential documentation. We need to take good documentation of our work. Digital, manually, it doesn't really matter, although in this day and age, having digital documentation of our work is of essence. Being a membership organization, we cater to very many different types of people at very different types, at different levels in their career. And we have people that are still dedicated to the slide. The slide is probably no longer going to be a valid medium in the next 5 years, although it is still being considered by some professional venues. So I would encourage all of you that no matter how you actually document your work, to really also document it digitally. There is no longer the possibility to choose either or. Some venues indeed will still accept slides, but the majority you will find will prefer you to submit CDs with your JPEGs, and that needs to be adhered to. So taking good documentation of your work, to take it digitally is still more challenging than to take it on film. And to do that, you do need a really good camera, and you need to work with the lighting, and sometimes if you're not able to do it, you might need to hire a professional to do it. And some work, for example, very monochromatic painting, is very hard to document, especially if there's a lot of texture. So that's definitely something to consider. I recently was exposed to an artist who created extremely layered paintings that were just black. And that is almost impossible to really document digitally, and very challenging by film as well, but less so than digitally, because the nuance and the texture of the paint is lost entirely. And you just have literally a flat black space, which really misses the entire concept of the painting. So there are challenges with documenting things digitally, but you might need to hire a professional to do the job for you, and there are ways to do it. So that is extremely important. We offer some workshops on taking documentation of your work digitally. We actually, in some of our workshops, we even offer computer time to kind of show you how to edit your images. There are software programs that you need to investigate to see how to work on those images. And always make sure that you crop them well, that the essence of the image is captured. If you're going to do a detail, make sure that you label the detail, and that people know that it is a detail of a larger work, and you're also going to have to offer that, entire piece alongside the detail to demonstrate the entire concept. So that is really a technical kind of expertise that you either are able to do by yourself, or that you outsource, of course, to hire somebody to do. But the technical aspect is very important, because really the quality of the documentation represents you. And it is the only way that you're going to be able to actually explain the essence of your work. Most of the time you won't have that face-to-face. So it needs to be so well done, so well provided that it speaks for you. And when presenting the actual portfolio, when you actually then have to sit down after taking the pictures and putting them on a CD and so on, you gotta start choosing which pieces you're actually gonna present, because you can't possibly expect a viewer to look at all of your work, right? Because some of you are very prolific. So you need to then do the job of selecting the work that will represent you the best for that particular venue. And the way that you need to conceive of this is, what is a body of work? You need to ask yourself, what is this body of work that I'm trying to do, or trying to create here? And whether or not it's by theme, or by experience, or by, the series is created based on a time in your life. The work, when viewed, needs to be cohesive and coherent. So, for example, if you're a multidisciplinary artist, you're a sculptor and a photographer and a painter. When presenting your work and your portfolio, you are probably going to want to focus on one medium, unless, for sure that particular venue is interested in seeing the diversity of work that you're capable of achieving. But most of the time, the venues want to see a coherent body of work. So a series of photographs that were taken, for example, on your trip to Asia, and you're trying to depict the your personal testament to what you saw. And it's a coherent body of work. I went here, I went there, and I created these images that represent what I saw and the people that I encountered. If you created a sculpture of your trip, that is not going to be something that you should include in that body. Even if it is during that time, the sculpture, because it is such a different medium, should really not be included. So it's very important, actually, to be very conscious of what it is that you're trying to demonstrate to the venue, and what it is that you're trying to say through this selection of 5, 6, 7, 8 works at most. I wouldn't go beyond 7 or 8 works. Any questions on that? On creating or selecting a group of works that best represents you? Yes.
I've just got a question about the actual portfolio. Are they going to be digital portfolios basically coming in the future, or is it still going to be relying on a bound?
That's a good question. That's a good question. And there's no absolute answer to that, okay, because various spaces want various things, and you always need to do your research and really figure out what specifically they need. And most of the time, for example, galleries, right? for-profit galleries, even not-for-profit spaces, will have the guidelines written on their websites.
Okay.
And I would encourage actually everybody to really just follow those guidelines to a T, and if you don't understand something that they say, or there's something that's unclear, to call them, because oftentimes they will disregard whatever comes their way if it's not exactly according to their specifications, and that's the unfortunate reality of these spaces. So if they say, we do still prefer slides, then you're gonna have to submit a sheet of slides, clearly labeled, red dot in the bottom right hand corner. Most of the time they'll tell you if they want it left or right or whatever, and clearly labeled, meaning name of the artist. Always keep your name on every single slide, medium, size, maybe price as either separate on a price sheet or on the slide if that's what they want. Always send in an artist statement, resume, that type of information. And if they say that they prefer digital submissions, you'll have to have a CD, and the image is clearly labeled again, title. If they say JPEG, it's JPEG. They'll specify what it is specifically that they're looking for. And in the packet that you send them, it might be that they want printouts because they want to first see something, right? They want to, rather than invest the time to put the CD in the computer, open the images, they might want to be confronted by something visual. So you might have to have a really good resolution printout. And then if they're intrigued, they will probably follow up and look at the rest of the images that you submit. But again, it's very contingent on each individual space, and you really need to follow their specifications.
And just real quick, can you convert digital to a slide?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh
Okay.
yeah.
You can scan it.
Okay.
Yeah.
You can have a scanner or something.
They
that
do.
Scan it for you.
They do. Yeah. Kinko's used to do it. They don't do that anymore, unfortunately. But they do indeed
Mostly, I
have.
think maybe 1 hour lab might be able to do it, like camera or
Okay.
wire.
Yeah. So I would also invest, as she mentioned, in a scanner. Slide scanners are no longer quite as expensive, and you can digitize pretty much everything. Yeah.
What about when you do send a CD in? How would you present the CD, I guess? As of, would you print a label on front of there with your artwork, a picture of your artwork?
What do you do to
yeah,
kind of make it
right.
stand out? Maybe.
Yeah.
I
Or
don't
you
think.
just get the black
yeah.
Sharpie and write your name on there, your phone number, I mean,
Pretty much, yeah. I don't think it's a science to that one.
Okay.
I
I guess is it, what's more professional would be to have probably something simple label on there.
Sure, yeah, and there are programs, of course, that you can. They're like features that you actually add to your CD burner, and of course you can get that professionally laser written on your CD, but that would be secondary. I wouldn't think that that's something that you really have to concern yourself over, because really CDs are disposable. And that's another actual thing that you need to consider. The fact that they're disposable is fact. Like, they are going to be tossed away. They're not archival in the way that slides used to be. Vendors will dispose of that, unless you put a self-addressed stamped envelope in there and ask nicely for it to be returned. Sometimes they do that, but oftentimes it's just a part of the practice at this point to dispose of those types of things. Okay, in conjunction with that, of course, the artist's statement is very important, and the resume. And I used to get asked, what do I put on my artist resume if I'm a beginning artist, if I haven't shown very much? In that regard, if you have any art experience, for example, if you're an art teacher or have been teaching anything associated with art, or if you're a graphic designer and in your other professional life, anything that has any relevance to your artistic practice is interesting for somebody to see. There was one lady who asked me, for example, if she can include her English teaching experience, because it had very much informed her art practice. That's actually an interesting question. You know, if your other professional work informs your art practice, but it's really not related, does it belong on your resume? Well, I would actually discuss that in an artist statement. How your own, other professional life informs your practice, that might be of interest actually in somebody understanding your work. So I would include that in an artist statement. So yeah, we have classes on that, and if you'd like examples of resumes, on our website there is a page dedicated to the artist resume, artist profile, and you can see how people categorize their previous experience, and those are good samples of artists that have done that in the past. When it comes time to researching your exhibition opportunities, it's really important to be very conscious of what it is that you're doing creatively, what is it that you are interested in saying. Because oftentimes galleries, art centers, other nonprofits have very clear visions and missions for the type of work that they exhibit. So it's very important to meet their interests with your own practice, because you're basically going to be wasting your own time if you send work that does not meet their interests, guidelines, mission statement, etc. So, there are a lot of resources out there. You can create a database for yourself of galleries, of exhibiting spaces, nonprofit and profit, and so on, and then really go to their websites and see what it is that they show and what they've shown in the past, what kind of work, does it fit the type of work that you create. That's really the best way. Again, a lot of these people get so many applications and queries that even if the work is spectacular, if it doesn't meet their stated vision, it's really just going to be thrown away. So that's really important for you to know. Even if the work is absolutely spectacular, if it doesn't meet their criteria, it's not going to be considered. I listed a few websites that offer information on exhibition opportunities, calls for entry, etc. So you have art deadlines. Of course, our website, under the calendar section, you can see a lot of exhibition opportunities, calls for entry, call for artists, and those are actually a little bit different. Call for artists is a little bit different from a call for entry in that it's a very general and not time sensitive call. So you'll have a new venue. A lot of, for example, emerging galleries post on our website calls for artists. We just want to see portfolios. Anybody who's interested in exhibiting, please send your information. It's a very general interest to see those. They don't promise you an exhibition by this to this date. A call for entry is time sensitive. We need you to submit the following by this deadline, and then we will let you know on this deadline for a show on this date. So it's a very tight, so you have to also be aware of the timing on those particular calls.
Is there anything that shows how many galleries are in certain areas?
Like a resource, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, yes. For example, there is the Chicago Gallery News, which is are you speaking about locally? Or
in the state, maybe?
in the state?
Or even
yeah, that
far
would.
northwest.
The Chicago Gallery Guide, which is a publication that we print, is the most comprehensive guide to Chicago and the surroundings. However, the Chicago Gallery News, it's a publication that we don't print, that is associated with the Chicago Art Dealers Association, And they do indeed publish a guide to galleries by neighborhood. For example, the River North Gallery District, West Loop Gallery District, Bucktown and Wicker Park. So it's by neighborhoods in Chicago. And they do indeed publish, like you could see the map too, you know, the concentration. That you can go to their website, Chicago Gallery News. You can Google it. I don't know what their website is, but if you Google it, Chicago Gallery News, you'll be able to just, you know, go to their website and see by neighborhood. The guide that we published includes also non-for-profit spaces, museums, you know, everything, but also in the Midwest, kind of the tri-state area. So the Chicago Gallery News is also a very good resource. The Chicago Artist Resource is a website that's maintained by the city, and there are also calls for entry and other, you know, listings on there that you should take a look at. Artlist, the Crafts Report magazine. Crafts Report, I think, is out of Michigan, Wisconsin. It's in the Midwest. It's a local publication. And they have a lot of listings too, and they have a nice website. And NYFA. NYFA's website is national. So if you go to NYFA.org, you will find national listings. And that's really helpful because you can submit to a juried show all the way in another state and you know, really beef up your resume that way.
Oh God, how is that spelled?
NYFA, N-Y-F-A. I think that we've spoken about this, how to present your application. Of course, always be courteous. Yeah. And I say that because oftentimes, especially while engaging galleries, there has been, from our experience, a sentiment that, you know, galleries are not courteous and they don't respond back in a timely fashion, and as a result, we need, as artists, to be a little bit more forceful. That is not going to act in our favor. So, unfortunately, it's this kind of social contract between galleries and artists that has to just be accepted and adhered to, and just, that's the way it is. If a gallery states publicly on their website, these are the guidelines, we just have to accept those guidelines because they will just throw our application away, and we don't want that. So, you know, it's time wasted, it's, you know, the works. So let's just, you know, adhere to whatever it is that they say they accept and not call them and, you know, insist on the phone and ask them why they didn't look at our work and so on. Also, we need to know what their responsibilities are as galleries, right? Always, if you do get some sort of an exhibition somewhere, at a private space, at a nonprofit space, always make sure that you know what the expectations are from that space. As an artist, you need to protect yourself. So ask about insurance. You want your work to be insured. Ask about a contract. Ask about a commission. Is there going to be a commission? Understand those things. You don't want any surprises, you know. So be prepared to ask as much information as possible, unless, of course, it's provided for you, you know, in the application process. If they don't offer a contract, ask yourself why. Why don't these people give you a contract? In Illinois, you are protected by law, and you are entitled to sign a contract with an exhibiting venue. For private spaces like galleries, there is the Illinois Consignment Act, and you are fully in the right to demand a contract with the exhibiting space if your piece is in their possession. It's true that many galleries are going to say, we don't do that. Other spaces don't do that either. But your role as an artist, professional artist, to protect yourself is to ask why. Why is it that you haven't done that? I think that they need to be made aware that that is not a professional policy, business practice. So that is really important. Be in the know about your own rights.
Do you have any opinion on what is it luck that gets you in these places, or is it, it's not persistence because you can't.
Right. No, it's not persistence. It's, of course, the work itself. But not only. I mean, you're absolutely right, because very gifted artists might not be able to get in. It's a combination of timing. You know, a lot of galleries, depending on what type of venue you're looking for, have, how should I say, have opening, you know, their roster gets opened up at a certain time, and you just don't know when that's going to be. Some of them do stay on their website, you know, we review applications once a year, and this is the date by, you know, because they know that throughout the year they might let one of their artists, you know, off the contract, and then they're willing to look at other artists. It's a combination of factors. I do encourage actually people to go and get to know these gallery owners at openings, for example. And you know, if they see that you are interested in their space and that you have a soft spot for their space, you're not just like willy-nilly, you know, applying everywhere, but that you're really interested in their particular roster of programs, in their space as an entity, then you know they might be more willing to consider your work too. It's really a relationship building exercise. You know, getting to know them, getting to know their shows, you know, really having some sort of actual discussion about their shows with them, you know, that makes you a stand out human being versus application. So, and these are, you know, how to really engage, just some guidelines that we've talked about, how to really engage with your exhibiting venue, and how to protect yourself, knowing that you have rights as an artist and that you should speak up on behalf of yourself, because they won't. They'll, you know, they won't.
Now what if you find a gallery that was interested in exhibiting your work and they don't have a contract?
You can, you can provide one for them. Yeah, absolutely, and I would encourage that. The Lawyers for the Creative Arts and the Chicago Artists Coalition, we actually have standard Illinois Consignment Act contracts available, and we offer them. We do make those accessible if people are interested in using a standardized form. In the back of the newspaper, like I mentioned, you can look to see a very comprehensive list of exhibition opportunities and residences, grants, those types of things.